In 1914, there lived an 8-year-old boy in a village in Japan. One day, he saw a machine running on four wheels. It was a Ford Model T that this kid was very surprised to see. That was a day when this 8-year-old boy first developed an affinity for cars and mechanical parts. His name was Soichiro Honda, and he knew that we would see his name on every car in the future. Story begins in 1906 in a small poverty-ridden village called Tenryu Shizuoka, at the foot of Mount Fuji. It was there that Gehi Honda and his wife welcomed their first son, Soichiro Honda. Soichiro's father was a local blacksmith from the village, who also fixed bicycles on the side, while his mother was an accomplished weaver raised in difficult economic situations. Soichiro lost 5 of his siblings growing up due to health issues. When Soichiro was 8 years old, he was going about his normal routine. In 1922, Soichiro came across a magazine ad for a Tokyo-based automobile servicing company called Art Shokai. He reasoned that since the company was one of the most popular motor car services in the city, they might be in need of new workers, so he wrote a letter to Art Shokai inquiring about a job, and luckily enough he received a positive reply. So at the age of 15, Soichiro dropped out of school, left home, and headed for Tokyo in pursuit of his dreams. When Soichiro got to Tokyo, he was overwhelmed to see how fast and different city life was compared to the village he had come from. When Soichiro arrived, the shop's owner, Yuzo Sakakibara, had a job already prepared for him. He was to babysit the owner's child. Soichiro was disappointed to find that over the next few months, he wasn't making any money, and the only work tasks he was assigned was to carry a baby wrapped around on his back the only. Soichiro started out doing menial tasks. He gradually climbed his way up until he became a trusted mechanic at the company. His talent and dedication eventually caught the attention of the owner, who decided to take little Soichiro under his wing and teach him not only mechanical repairs, but the business side of the company as well. Although Sakakibara's repair work included both automobiles and bicycles, cars were not as popular then as they are today. Not only were automobiles a luxury that only people of the upper class could afford, but most of the automobiles around at the time were foreign-made. Through his work, Soichiro quickly became familiar with a wide range of automobiles, including Lincolns, Mercedes, Daimlers, and even various motorcycles that were brought into the workshop. Soichiro poured everything he had into expanding his knowledge and understanding of his craft. It was through this company that Soichiro was also introduced to the world of motorsports. Around this time, motorsports were quickly gaining popularity around Europe, America, and even Japan. And in 1923, Sakakibara himself began to build racing cars with the help of his workers, including Soichiro. Their first model was the Art Daimler, built using a second-hand Daimler engine, and their second model was the Curtiss. The Curtiss was made using another second-hand engine from an American Curtiss biplane, placed on the chassis of another American car, the Mitchell. This car would go on to race in the 5th Japanese Motor Car Championship in 1924. Taking a stunning first position with Sakakibara's brother as driver and Soichiro as the accompanying engineer. It was a special experience for the 70-year-old boy, and from then on motorsports became his religion. In 1926, Soichiro was drafted for military service, but didn't pass the medical exams, as they revealed that he was colorblind. Thus he was excused from the army and was able to keep working at Art Shokai. By 1928, Yuzo Sakakibara wanted to expand his business and decided to open a branch of Art Shokai in Hamamatsu. He believed there was no better man to leave in charge than his young apprentice, and at the age of 21, Soichiro was called upon to run the new branch. However, Soichiro's repair shop struggled during the first year, largely because people didn't want to entrust their cars with someone so new and so young, so Soichiro had to live off the scraps that other repair shops cast aside. Still, the young man used all the knowledge and skill he had acquired over the years, and in time he successfully managed to grow his business. By the 1930s, his new shop had grown from a one-man operation to a staff of 30 people. The branch grew at an incredible pace during the next few years, and with so much work to be done, Soichiro had to bring his wife in to help run the company. Even though Soichiro was known as a brilliant mechanic, he was also a prodigious racing driver, and this was another skill that helped him stand out from his peers. Inside his shop, Soichiro had built the Hamamatsu race car, in which he managed to set a new speed record by driving it up to 120 kilometers per hour, a record that stood for 20 years in Japan. However, racing at the time was far more dangerous than it is today, and in June 1936, Honda was involved in a serious crash while racing the Hamamatsu suburbs of Tokyo and almost died. Soichiro's left arm was fractured, his shoulder was dislocated, and his face was damaged. Despite spending a couple of months at the hospital nursing his injuries, Soichiro returned to the racetrack only 4 months later. His family, however, was unhappy with his return to racing, and after several arguments with his wife and father, Soichiro never raced again. By 1936, Honda became tired and weary of his repair work. He wanted to do more and was planning to move on to manufacturing car parts. Suffered several facial injuries. This seemed to be the end of Honda's life. He could neither work as a mechanic nor participate in racing. After several months, when he recovered, he requested the owner of Art Shokai that he could no longer do this repair work, but he proposed the idea of why not start a separate company to make spare parts. Art Shokai stakeholders immediately rejected Honda's idea, as they were already getting profits and no one wanted to take a new risk on this. Honda decided to open a parts manufacturing company alone. In 1936, at the age of 30, he opened Tokaiseki Heavy Industries along with his friend and made his friend Shiokado its president. He had opened the company, but Honda had no investment to run it. He worked for Art Shokai during the day and at night tried to make engine pistons for his new company. For the next several months, he continued with the same routine, but he could not find any success. Instead, he was weakened by the continuous shifts. One failure after another blocked his way. Then he took admission in a university to master metallurgy. In 1939, after 3 years of hard work, he finally succeeded in making a pon. Now he quit his job with Art Shokai and started making pistons full-time. But he didn't know that the pistons he made still had many faults. When he presented his pistons to the Toyota company, Toyota rejected 47 out of 50 designs. This news came as a shock to Honda, as there was no way back from here. He started traveling all over Japan to understand the requirements of different companies. He went to different factories. After meeting with car manufacturers, he spent the next several years understanding the market. And after that, Honda made pistons once again. This time, these pistons had passed the quality control of all the companies. He started getting a lot of orders, and once again Honda saw his dreams come true, and his company even hired 2,000 workers to fulfill the orders. Who knew that this Honda delight was only a guest for a few months? In 1941, Japan entered World War II, and the ministry took control of several Japanese companies, including Soichiro Honda. Honda was demoted to senior managing director of the same company. And things got worse when the company's workers were drafted into military service. The The next 3 years were very difficult, but in 1944 an incident occurred that completely dashed Honda's hope. During the air raid, a missile hit the Honda factory. The situation in the whole country was getting worse and worse. Japan seemed to be losing the war. Then in 1945 there were 2 nuclear attacks that devastated Japan. After this incident, Japan surrendered to the Americans. The war was over, but Honda had lost everything. He sold his remaining assets to East Toyota for 450,000 yen and once again sat down without a job. This situation was not only with Honda, but the whole of Japan was going through a very bad crisis. The economy was melting, severe shortage of food and water, and high inflation made the condition of everyone worse. Public transport was extremely difficult to find, as petrol had become scarce in Japan. Meanwhile, Honda found a small engine from the Japanese Imperial Army that the soldiers used to operate a wireless radio, and he got an idea. He thought, why not to solve his transportation problem by installing this engine in a bicycle. This will also make transportation easier and cheaper, because in this period people were already very worried about inflation. So when they saw this engine installed on a bicycle, everyone liked this idea very much. Honda got some used engines, but the demand was so high that now Honda has designed its own new engine. It was the first time in history that a Honda logo was seen on a machine, and Honda didn't have enough money to produce these cycles in such large numbers. So he wrote an open letter to 18,000 shopkeepers. People had so much faith in Honda that 3,000 shopkeepers gave him a positive reply and also gave money in advance. Over the next 3 years, Honda created a motorcycle that perfectly suited the market's requirements. It was launched as the Super Cub, which took the market by storm as soon as it arrived. The model was so successful that in 1958 it outsold Triumph and Harley-Davidson in the US. Because Honda was very fond of racing, that's why he decided to make a sports bike. He would go to various bike races and note down the special features of the winning bikes. During this period, such a sports competition were more of a marketing tool for manufacturing companies than a race. Honda's first sports bike was launched in a few years, taking first place in the 1962 International Racing Competition. This race made Honda famous all over the world. By 1960, Honda had become the largest motorcycle manufacturing company in the world, and by 1968 it had sold 1 CR units. After spending 62 years of his life, Soichiro Honda had finally found success, but the dream he had since his childhood had not been yet fulfilled. Honda now wanted to go into car manufacturing. Many people told him not to do it, but he didn't listen to anyone. At that time, companies like Toyota and Nissan were already establishing their business in Japan. It was quite difficult to make a new place in the market there. Honda launched its first pickup truck, the TE360, which failed. After that, Honda launched the sports car S500, of which only 1,300 units were sold. After many years of hard work and dozens of rejected designs, the Honda Civic was finally launched in 1972. This is the car whose new models are famous all over the world. In 1980, Honda Motors was the third largest manufacturing company in Japan, and in just 10 years it became the third largest in the world. Today we find the Honda name on cars, motorcycles, boat engines, plane engines, and dozens of power tools. Soichiro Honda retired from the company in 1973, the year after the Honda Civic was launched, and on August 5th, 1991 his life journey ended forever. Hope you guys like this video. Please subscribe the channel for more videos.